All right, gang, it looks like we're live, and I wanted to have this live stream. I'll wait as some of you are coming in, especially you rock guitar fans, heavy metal guitar fans. I know there's plenty of you out there. And I think many of you know that I dabbled in the guitar for a number of years. And I actually went to Peabody Conservatory of Music and studied under Manuel Barroeco, classical guitar and all that good stuff. Oh, everybody's starting to come in. Hey, guys. Chance. Hey, Chance. Great first comment. A true rock legend. May he rest in peace. Awesome, Chance. Thank you for that. That's perfect. I wanted to do a quick live feed. I just heard the news of Eddie Van Halen. And my life in the guitar world was just so inordinately influenced by this man that I had to give a bit of a in memoriam. I had to offer some thoughts on this life that was so well lived in terms of his musical talent and his joy of just being alive, playing the guitar for literally tens of millions of people all over the world. As we're getting news now that this rock legend, Eddie Van Halen, a guitarist like no other, which I will argue for this evening. I will try to make the argument that he is one of the single most extraordinary and important influences in the development of rock guitar, and I would even just say guitar in general. He has indeed passed away. He had a long battle with cancer, but apparently it wasn't so much the smoking. He was a chain smoker and a heavy drinker. Obviously, he was actually alcoholic. It wasn't so much his lungs; it was his tongue, and is it esophageal cancer that got him? I think it was over several years, but it would go in remission. It would keep coming back. And now I believe he's 65. We have lost one of the great legends of the guitar. And I'm saying, guys, great. Yeah, join on in. How many? 1.3 thousand. Wow, in 2 minutes. Awesome, guys. Yeah, come on in. Look at that. R.I.P. Eddie. He'll be missed. 2020 still going down. Yeah. Rest in peace, Eddie. Absolutely. He was an amazing fellow. Let me give you a little bit of my history with Eddie Van Halen. I never met him personally, and I'm one of the few of my friends, the group guitarists that I used to hang out with. I'm one of the few that actually never saw him perform live, believe it or not. I have seen many guitarists live, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, Eddie Van Halen was not one of them. But I studied his technique. I studied his guitar playing quite a bit, and learned a lot of his solos. Yes, I learned Eruption when I was in 7th grade and 8th grade with a couple of friends of mine when we were just so into Eddie Van Halen's guitar playing. I just felt like I needed to honor this man. I'll never forget the first time I heard Eddie Van Halen playing. It was the famous solo on their very first album called Eruption. I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't know you could just have one track dedicated solely to an electric guitar making sounds and doing magic that I never thought possible. Sonic magic I never thought possible. I had a really good friend in 7th grade. If he's watching, God bless you, bro. Brian Wise. Brian brought a cassette tape of Eruption, and he played it for me. And Brian was so good, he could actually play the tapping technique. I'll talk about that as we go along in the video here. He could play the tapping technique right along with Eddie Van Halen and his solo in this in Eruption. You'll definitely, if you're not familiar with it, make sure you, as just a way of honoring this fellow, punch in Eruption on YouTube. Eddie Van Halen, and he'll blow your mind. You just never knew the sounds like that could be made. And again, here we are. I mean, now we're talking almost 40 years ago, right? Now, of course, in many ways, a lot of those sounds are commonplace. But back then, to the ears of an 11 or 12-year-old, 13-year-old, I forget exactly how old it was. I think it was 13. So this has been like 1981, 82. I mean, back then, I mean, I had never heard a sound. I didn't even know sounds like this were imaginable. And it turned out that would be the beginning of a number of years of just appreciation, of love, of study. I learned, I was able to study with an amazing electric guitar player in Connecticut who played Eddie Van Halen sound perfect. He knew all the licks. He figured out all the solos. So he was showing them to me, and I would sit there and I'd practice for hours and hours trying to get down all these amazing techniques. In terms of where he was on the sort of the panoply of players, in many respects, I mean, I'd have to say he is, how do I put this? Don't take this the wrong way. I'm not trying to be sacrilegious here. I tend to see someone like a Jimi Hendrix as sort of like the Old Testament and Eddie Van Halen as the New Testament. Okay. So I see Jimi Hendrix as very much a 60s player, late 60s, maybe as it were early 70s kind of style but I see Eddie Van Halen, who comes on the scene in the 70s. I see him as an 80s and 90s and even 21st century player. So if Hendrix laid the foundation, as it were, it was, he's like the John the Baptist, but again, I'm not trying to be sacrilegious, but Eddie Van Halen was like the Messiah here. I mean, he really brought electric guitar technique and what electric guitar was able to do to whole new heights and whole new possibilities that, if you trace it back, really does irreducibly go back to him. Hendrix for me was more, and I did study his technique. Hendrix is a sacrilegious Messiah. All right, I know, I'm sorry. You know what I'm trying to get at? Let me mourn here. I'm trying to get a set. Randy Rhoads was better. All right. Who's that? Alien? Okay. You and I agree. I won't do that. I shouldn't do that here. But I was a Randy Rhoads. So back in the day, so I grew up in Connecticut, and in Connecticut, you were either a New York sports fan or a Boston sports fan. I think back in the day when I was growing up, it was like 70%, 30%, 70% New York, 30% Boston. When you were guitar players in the early 80s, the battle, the arguments centered around who was better, Eddie Van Halen or Randy Rhoads. Randy Rhoads, a great guitar player for Ozzy Osbourne, died in a tragic private plane crash. Just a stupid little joyride he was taking with a guy, I think, who turned out to be high on cocaine or so forth. Not Randy Rhoads. He didn't have any drugs in his system. But he died, I believe, at the age of 25, 26 in 1981 or so. And Randy Rhoads, for me, Randy Rhoads was it, because Randy Rhoads had that. He was really the first one to get this neoclassical style that Swedish guitarist by the name of Yngwie Malmsteen ended up developing in whole new directions. But in many respects, it sort of begins with sort of medieval Gothic kind of neoclassical sound of Randy Rhoads. So yes, okay, so yes, I Randy is the master, made in wool. Amen. That's well put in. Yngwie, there you go. So I see you guys. All right, you know it. You're up on it. You probably know more about it than I do. I've been out of that world for so long. Alcatraz. All right, so you're going to get me on all these tangents. Alcatraz was the first album I heard Yngwie Malmsteen on when he was playing. This is before Rising Force. And so in between Steeler and Rising Force, I heard Alcatraz, and a friend of mine said, you got to hear this guitar player. And for those of you who don't know, it's a Swedish guitar player. By the way, punch in if you want kind of a bit of an argument that heavy metal is a nationalist populist form of music. By its nature, very conservative form of music, because it has as its sonority and as its sound a very cello sounding what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, it's been so long since I've been in this world. Yeah, sonority is timbre. That's the word I'm looking for. Oh, it'll come back to me, hopefully. Heavy metal, like that you hear Metallica and so forth, ironically, can sound very cello-like. There's a cello quartet called Apocalyptica that actually exploits that and creates awesome heavy metal, particularly Metallica arrangements for cello quartet that sound utterly amazing. But if you're interested, if you punch in Dr. Steve Turley and then you just put heavy metal, there's a great podcast that we did a few years back on how heavy metal, on the nationalist populist vision of heavy metal. So I think you really enjoy that. Iron Maiden features prominently there. Yngwie Malmsteen features prominently, and the like. All right, so I'm getting off my. We could get lost in rabbit trails. My students always say I go off on rabbit trails. It's really easy to get me going there. But what Eddie Van Halen was able to do, if Hendrix was more. When all is said and done, Jimi Hendrix was an old blues style guitar player. He was an old blues style guitar player on steroids. Okay, he was an old, Mississippi Delta blues like guitar player that could hook up his guitar to a volume and distortion that would play out to 100,000 people in a way that no Mississippi Delta guitar player could have ever done. So that was sort of Hendrix' thing. Hendrix, in that sense, was not radically an innovator. If you take his national anthem, you might. Oh, thanks, Ford to Jersey. That's very kind of you. If you take, Neil Peart and now Eddie Van Halen, Neil Peart, I should say. And Eddie Van Halen, 2 in a year. Was Neil Peart 2020? I can't remember now. I think he was, wasn't he? Gosh, what a crappy year 2020 has turned out to be. Can't forget Joe Satriani, of course. Yes, Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and that whole world, of course. They're all virtuosos. They're all stunning. So, all right, let me stay focused. So if Jimi Hendrix is your quintessential blues player on steroids, Eddie Van Halen went a step farther. Eddie Van Halen actually invented rock guitar in many respects. He went beyond the blues. He made the electric guitar come to life in terms of sounds we simply never heard before. And so he's most well known for developing what we call a right-hand tapping style. So if you could picture a guitar, so you have the body and then you have the neck where you move your hand around, right? And the body is where you're going to strum and pick or whatever. So on the neck, what Eddie Van Halen was able to do is, you have 4 fingers doing whatever on your fretboard. Eddie Van Halen would actually take his index finger of his right hand and actually start playing it on a tapping. You can make a sound simply by pressing down very quick and fast on a string. You can make a sound that way. And so he could actually add an extra finger. Sometimes he might even bring in 2 fingers. So you could have like this 6-finger technique on the electric guitar. And therefore he was able to create sounds you just never heard before. And then what he would do is he would actually play via this tap technique. He would play arpeggios, and arpeggios are broken chords. So instead of just playing a chord, you can play each note of the chord separately up and down in this wonderful pattern really fast. And it creates this amazing collage of sound, almost like a fireworks display of sound. So these arpeggios have this beautiful sense, but then because they're broken chords, you can actually create a chord progression with the arpeggios. And that's what he does in his solo in Eruption. At the latter half of Eruption is all tapping technique. And it's basically a chord progression that when I've actually tried it on classical guitar, it doesn't sound anywhere near as good on as a electric guitar. Thanks, Paul. God bless, man. Appreciate it. It doesn't sound as good as the electric guitar, but what that electric guitar does with the arpeggios is he creates a chord progression, and the chord progression, I kid you not, it could be played on the organ, in a concert hall in Vienna, or in a Salzburg cathedral, something like that. It has that magnanimity, this extraordinary sound to it that nobody else was doing. I'm sure others were, but Eddie Van Halen was able to bring it to this mass, level of audience reception and appreciation. So if Jimi Hendrix was primarily blues riffs, Eddie Van Halen was able to take those blues riffs and then combine them with a flair and a magnanimity of literally like a Baroque organist playing Bach. And in fact, you can thank you, Luz Rodriguez. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. And again, unfortunately we're unfortunately in a sad situation here with saying goodbye to our good friend, our sonic friend here, Eddie Van Halen. But in fact, Eddie Van Halen's technique was so reminiscent of what you might hear in a European cathedral, for example. He started making classical arrangements for the electric guitar. One of the coolest arrangements he did was Beethoven's Für Elise, right? For Elise. That you could check out on YouTube. Just put Eddie Van Halen and Für Elise, F-U-R-E-L-I-S-E. That should drum it up for you. He was able to bring the right hand into play on the fretboard, which added a couple of other fingers, which created all these new possibilities in terms of what could be done on the guitar. He was also the first guitarist, again, when I was studying it, back in the early 80s, he was the first guitarist to really popularize the whole, can I call it just a bag of tricks, a bag of techniques that he had? So every time you would see him play, he would always be doing something new. He was like this magician, So at 1 minute, he's using speed picking like we never heard before. Again, we never really heard Jimi Hendrix do speed picking like this, where he's just hitting really, it's called staccato in music. It's just really fast, strong, aggressive playing, like the wings of a hummingbird, just on the strings, right? But then the next minute, he would do all these, he would literally not even play with his right hand. The pick would be gone. He would do all these things with his left hand, and you would get this legato feel, which is a really smooth, silky, fluid way of sounding, of playing. And then he would utilize something called the whammy bar that you see. It's a bar connected to the bridge of an electric guitar. We don't have it on classical guitar. It would break the wood, but the whammy bar enabled him. It enabled him to create effects like an ocean when he was playing, or he made you feel like you're on a sonic roller coaster, a roller coaster of melody. And he had a very fast and very flashy vibrato with his left hand. And he perfected the squeal. I don't think I ever heard anyone play a squeal like him. That's a pick technique. How do I explain a squeal? That's right, Lana. Eddie was 65 years old, too young, way too young. 65. He should have had another easily 20 years. Yeah, Philip, Randy Rhoads. Yeah, I'm with you. But it's funny. Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen were just very different guitar players, weren't they? Very, very different. It's funny because I think in many respects, as Eddie Van Halen continued to play over the years, he became more and more like Randy Rhoads, utilizing more classical licks. Remember, Randy Rhoads played some classical guitar. Yeah, he was actually taking formal classical guitar lessons towards the end of his life. As I understand, and Gary Moore, look at you guys, David, Gary Moore, absolutely another one who passed away a couple of years back. Irish guitarist Gary Moore was fantastic. End of the World solo, the solo right before his song, The End of the World, absolutely amazing. Jeff Beck as well. Traditional metal Turley. There you go. There you go. Traditionalist metal Turley. That's right. Man, yeah. I think Eddie Van Halen is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If he's not, that's a crime. He should be. But yeah, Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen are very different guitar players. They were playing different styles of music. Again, Randy was really into this kind of gothic, neoclassical kind of playing that, whereas Eddie Van Halen was more he was the party player. So if Randy was playing, everybody would be quiet, right? Everybody would be quiet. He would just start, playing maybe D on the classical guitar and then break into Suicide Solution and doing all these amazing kind of, Mr. Crowley solos using diminished scales and arpeggios and all that kind of stuff. It was, his black polka dot flying V, right? Jackson Charvel was a perfect symbol of his guitar playing style. Eddie Van Halen was Mr. Party. He'd be like, dude, crack open the keg, man. Let's rock and roll. And he'd start playing and he'd go wild and everyone start going nuts. And all of a sudden the drums would kick in, right? His brother would kick in and you just start having a blast and a great time. That was his kind of playing. It was really astonishing. Yeah, Eddie was influenced by Clapton. Yeah, big time. Everybody was. My, oh my, everybody was. I never studied much Clapton, unfortunately. Vivian Campbell with Dio, absolutely. I saw Vivian play years ago. I don't know what he's doing now, but he was a fantastic player. Wow, I should just look at your comments. You guys are fantastic. You know more than I do. This is awesome. I'm just gonna listen. Yeah, Richie Blackmore. Well, Richie Blackmore was a huge influence on Yngwie Malmsteen, ironically. Not so much on the playing style, but on his style, right? So Yngwie always wore black and the way he kind of moved on stage and the way he did with the lips and the perm of the hair. That was all classic Richie Blackmore. Jerry Garcia, damn it. Somebody said that's right. Little different style there, a little different subdued. That was a different party. Usually a hacky sack was involved there. But yes, an astonishing player, of course. Jerry Garcia. All these guys, we forget that these are truly virtuosos. They practiced their craft hours and hours and hours a day, year after year after year. And when they finally perfected those, because they didn't just master a style, they ended up creating their own. And that's what makes them so astonishing. Did I just see Vivian Campbell's with Def Leppard now? Somebody put that. Paul Gilbert. Oh, Leslie, well done. Oh, my heavens. Yeah, Paul Gilbert. Jimmy Page. Yep, Jimmy Page with Chet Atkins. Look at you guys. Brad Gillis. All right. Talk about whammy bar, right? Oh, my. He talked about perfecting the tremolo bar. Some people don't like the term whammy bar. They prefer tremolo bar, something akin to that. But let me just kind of get more into, I think I left off with, Eddie Van Halen perfected the squeal. Okay, which is it's a pick technique where you can actually you combine both the pick and the flesh of the thumb on the string when you hit it in such a way so that you're able to produce very high overtones, extremely high overtones on one note. So you hit one note, or you can actually do it with a whole bunch of notes if you want to, but you hit one note. And it's that bass note. You're getting that bass note, but you're also getting this real high overtone note above it. So it creates this massive sound where you're actually hearing at least two notes at the same time going from playing just one note. Eddie Van Halen was a master at the squeal. and he made it sound so raw and heavy. He ended up he loved using thank you, Bukolik Buffalo. Did I catch that? He loved using his right hand a lot. He started doing a lot of finger picking in the second half, say, of his guitar career. And it should be stated, he was a masterful rhythm player. He was a masterful. You didn't need another guitar player. He was the sole guitar player in his band, and he was this masterful rhythm player. Everyone comments on his solos, but it's his riffs. It's his rhythm. It's his groove of his tunes that he would write. His songwriting abilities were extraordinary. Well, obviously, I mean, with all the hits that Van Halen had, he thought in terms of what the technical term is motifs. So in music, you create a motif like Beethoven, la da da da, la da da da, right? You find a motif, and then, or a subject, it's also called, and then you figure out what's inside of that. That's a seed, that motif. And then what I can do is I can draw out of that motif all these kind of variations on it, and I can create a song doing that. And that Eddie Van Halen just had this natural propensity toward the motif, right? Towards just the subject of a tune, of a riff. And it's a combination of some kind of melodic catchiness with a massively cool groove, rhythm and riff, and put it all together. And there's just really no one quite like him. So in many respects, I think he influenced more guitarists probably than anyone else on the planet when all's said and done. Somebody's got to, right? And I think it turned out to be Eddie Van Halen when all is said and done. You know, when I look back, I mean, I saw some of you guys putting out someone like Yngwie Malmsteen or Randy Rhoads. I tended to go more, I tended to go more in Randy Rhoads, Yngwie Malmsteen direction. I loved the neoclassical. And then I ended up actually going full classical. Randy Rhoads was interested in doing that, as I understand it. I forget what's the interview I heard. Was it Sharon Osbourne or somebody? Rudy Sarzo, the bassist. One of them said towards the end of his life, like his last few months of his life, he was actually thinking of leaving rock guitar. He wanted to go solely into classical guitar. He loved it so much. He loved the counterpoint and the nuance of classical guitar playing. So I tended to go more in that direction than more the Eddie Van Halen direction. But having said that, I mean, no one, I don't think anyone, certainly for an entire decade, from say the late 70s, late 80s, no one influenced more people to play the guitar than I think Eddie Van Halen, play electric guitar, that is. There really was no one like him. And I may add, if I recall correctly, he did it all without knowing how to read a lick of musical notation. Let that hit you. In effect, Eddie Van Halen was illiterate his whole life when it came to musical notation. All right, Steve Vai isn't. Steve Vai knows. Most guitarists, as I understand today, know how to write music out. They can read music and so forth. Not Eddie. Eddie Van Halen, if I recall correctly, he played guitar by ear, by pattern. He had a geometric mind. So he played by ear, by pattern, and by imagination. He imagined what this instrument could sound like, and he made it happen. And it was he was extraordinary in terms of his gifts, and an amazing person. He'll be missed. He'll be missed. It's really sad to see some of these legends pass on. I see someone talking about Dimebag Darrell from Pantera. That's another amazing, not just solo player, but riff player. Is his ability to Angus Young just recently passed away. These guys could write songs like nobody. They were amazing. They weren't just show-offs on the guitar. They loved music, and they loved creating memorable riffs that really affected us. Dave Murray and Adrian Smith, of course, Iron Maiden, two phenomenal players. I'm so old, I remember Iron Maiden when they only had Dave Murray and Adrian Smith. I don't even really know the third guy's name, right? I don't know. But anyway, oh, thanks, man. Thanks. But yeah, Jakey Lee is another wonderful, wonderful player. Tom Petty. Tom Petty's more songwriter. Maybe he was a good guitar player. I don't know of his solo ability. Kurt Cobain, more of a songwriter. Satriani's astonishing virtuoso. Zach, I grew up around Zach. I knew a bunch of guys who knew Zach Wilde. We were around. I grew up in Connecticut. He was in Jersey, and Ozzy Osbourne, as I understand it, when he was picking his replacement for Jakey Lee, if I recall, it came down to two guys. It was Zach Wilde versus an amazing guitarist by the name of Jimmy Bell in Connecticut. I believe he's still there in Middletown, Connecticut. Anybody know Jimmy Bell? Look him up. He's astonishing. So two guitar players in our kind of sphere that we were in. We were in this guitar playing sphere of just all these. I mean, I was a kid back then, okay? I mean, I was 14 or 15, and I was around these astonishing electric guitar players, and two of those electric guitar players in the greater New York area that we were all hanging around with, two of them made it to the top two of Ozzy's pick to be the replacement of Jakey Lee. And that was either going to be Zach Wilde or it was going to be Jimmy Bell. And of course, Zach Wilde got the gig. They were both astonishing, very different players. So anyway, yeah, no, that's cool. This is going down memory lane for me, which is just unbelievable. Anyway, yeah, Eddie Van Halen, what can I say? Just, you only see someone like that. I don't know, once every era. I mean, I'm thinking like few hundred years, because who since then has been able to create such a unique blend of guitar playing that kind of set a whole massive series of genres on fire on the guitar. I mean, the guy collaborated with Michael Jackson, for heaven's sakes. This is a guy whose style of playing was not just so unique, but it was so transferable. It was so applicable to whatever style of music you were listening to, whether it was metal, whether it was classical, sort of neoclassical, or whether it was, R&B or rap or whatever it would be. I mean, he could come in, he could lay off some riffs in a solo that will enrich whatever style of music you were listening to. It was really amazing. Yeah, Dimebag Darrell was astonishing. Stevie Ray Vaughan, absolutely astonishing. Alan Holdsworth. Yeah, Alan Holdsworth. If you want to break your fingers, play Alan Holdsworth. He had an extraordinary reach with his fingers, span, I should say. John Petrucci of Dream Theater, absolutely. Phenomenal play. Roy Clark. We did an RIP for Roy Clark. Roy Clark was astonishing. Look up Malagueña of Roy Clark. It was absolutely unbelievable. Randy, Eddie, Jakey Lee. Jakey Lee was a fantastic. Al Di Meola, astonishing guitarist, jazz guitarist, absolutely. Bob Hope on the ukulele. You guys are awesome. Bob, who comes up with that? What kind of genius are you? Bob Hope on the ukulele. Oh man, that's brilliant. Gosh, that's good. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. What else we got here? R.I.P. Randy. Yngwie Malmsteen, absolutely. I remember checking out Yngwie Malmsteen back in, I think it was 1985 in Hartford. Was it at the Agora nightclub in Hartford? So this is when he was just playing small little bars, basically, in the end, maybe with a seating capacity of about 1,000 at tops. And he went into one of his crazy solos, and he starts ripping off the characteristic lick, the arpeggio speed picking lick in Eruption. And we're all like, whoa, he can play Eddie Van Halen. He can do anything, kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's such a testimony to how influential Eddie Van Halen was back then. Even this great guitar god, Eddie Yngwie Malmsteen was giving his best to Eddie Van Halen. Yo-Yo Ma, who's sophisticated there? Are you an Apocalyptica listener? Yeah, Apocalyptica fan. Yo-Yo Ma is one of the most astonishing cellists around. I've seen him play several times. Absolutely wonderful. So sad. R.I.P. Eddie. Absolutely. Yeah, Gary Moore was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Michelangelo Beto. Yeah. So all right, you're getting into somebody here is really up on some of the what do we want to say, the best kept secrets in the guitar. I mean, because he's just never. Who did he play with? Nitro? Michelangelo Beto? Didn't he play with Nitro? Michelangelo Beto is just from another world. I mean, I think he drank some kind of nuclear drink or something. And Michelangelo Beto is the only guitarist I've ever seen who could play upside down as fast and as versatile as we play, right side up. I mean, absolutely astonishing guitar player. Without equal. Slash, formerly Guns N' Roses, phenomenal player. Not to be a jerk, but especially since he sobered up. I mean, he was pretty bad for a while. I mean, if you get to Nuno Bettencourt, yeah, very good. Extreme. Yeah, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yeah. You guys, you're killing me here. Oh man, yeah, no, Extreme. Uno is another guy who just astonishing when it came to actually being able to write riffs. A lot of these guys get caught up. I don't want to name names, but a lot of these guys get caught up just playing astonishing solo guitar, so that they're like this, concerto violinist, concert violinist, just playing these licks, and it's just blowing you away, but they can't write a good song. And so they kind of get stuck unless they can find someone to start writing songs. And generally though, they're so unique in terms of their technique and their sound. It's hard to write for them. So they tend to write for themselves. But anyway, Steve Stevens, definitely Billy Idol. Steve Stevens has an amazing solo on one of his records. I'm forgetting what it was. If I recall, it was acoustic. It was like a Spanish flamenco. That's absolutely amazing. Steve Howe, absolutely. Yes. Fantastic player. Sorry, guys. These go by it. I don't know. It's the same people, you guys. These are going real fast. So I'm trying to catch one here. I should have. There's a switch I can use to slow these down for me. George Lynch, Dokken, fantastic. Steve Martin, banjo extraordinaire, who is actually a fantastic banjo player. He's very good. Les Paul, of course. Brian May, of course. Queen, Gilmore, yeah, Brad Gilbert. Yeah, we already talked about him. He's amazing. Paco de Lucia. Ooh, someone who's really good there. Paco de Lucia, if you listen to him and like Al Di Meola play together, and then who was it? There was a third. Why am I forgetting his name? Maybe you guys will remind me here. So anyway, when you listen to them play, it's really fascinating because they're both very, very fast players. But there was something about McLaughlin. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. McLaughlin. What's his first name now? He's the least one I know of the three, but it's McLaughlin and Al Di Meola and Paco de Lucia. And when you listen to Di Meola, everybody was like, man, this guy's so fast. He's incredible. You got to listen to him. And I'd be astonished by his playing. Is it John? Yeah, I think it's John McLaughlin. And Pat Metheny, yeah. Did he play with Paco de Lucia? Or is he just being offered as a fantastic player? Buckethead is fantastic. Buckethead is an amazing guitar player. He's actually Steve Turley. Yes. Lee Santos. That's right. Steve Turley back in the day, right? If you guys want to check it out, we do have a video from, what am I saying? Yeah. Is it 20 years ago? 1999, 21 years ago of me playing on the 700 Club back in the day. I'm going to have to break it out again at some point. But anyway, when you listen to someone like Paco de Lucia play next to Al Di Meola, it's one of the few times Al Di Meola sounds wimpy. And I'm not trying to be a jerk against him. It's actually a testimony to Paco de Lucia's what you call apoyando, is his rest stroke of his right hand. He could play not just so fast, but he played it so strong and so powerful. I mean, it sounded like a machine gun coming out of his guitar. And you can't produce that sound with a plastic pick. You just can't do it. Now, there's not too many people who could do what Paco de Lucia could do. But when you listen to them play back to back, I could close my eyes. I knew every time Paco de Lucia was playing, just because he had this massively powerful scale technique. So, all right, guys. Anyway, so that's my little tribute to Eddie Van Halen. Absolutely amazing talent. He will be missed. There's a wonderful interview he did. I think it's at 92nd Street Y in New York, or maybe in LA. I'm not sure. On YouTube. It's probably a good 2-hour interview. Thanks, Brandon. A 2-hour interview and he's got his guitar and he does some demonstrations. He talks about his family, he talks about his son, Wolfie, who did announce his death today, and who he got to play with. And he talked how much he loved playing with his son. He loved the fact that he got to play on stage with his son. And, what a testimony. It wasn't the fame. It wasn't the fortune. It wasn't, the thousands, the tens of millions of fans, thousands of fans, tens of millions of fans. It wasn't all that. What was it? What was his ultimate highlight? He got to play with his son. His son is a great bass player. So just an amazing man, and he'll be missed. All right, gang. So there we are. I'll see you more on YouTube. We'll see you tomorrow as we move closer and closer to the crazy election. Do not let the polls discourage you. Don't worry about them. They were doing exactly the same thing in 2016. Do not let your hearts be troubled. All right, gang. Thank you, guys. God bless.